give up more of that responsibility? And is he going to become somewhat of a spot-up shooter at the same time, or are those guys going to become spot-up shooters? Going to be interesting to watch.
Would you ever consider him the best player of all time? Like, does LeBron have to do something, or can he do something where you would go, now I would look at him as the best player?
No, I think he certainly, just off the cuff, he's certainly the top 5 of all times. But playing against him and MJ, I think for me it's MJ all day long, only because how I played against him, and MJ just had everything, from mid-range to three-point to post-up game, and he could score and dominate in each position. LeBron is dominant. LeBron could do so many things on the floor. And
do you think LeBron's a better all-around player than Jordan?
It's hard. That's hard to say because LeBron is probably one of the best passers that the league has seen. MJ is probably the weakest part of his game. He didn't pass a lot, but at the same time, MJ didn't have any other weaknesses in his game. And defensively, he was a two-way player. Defensively, he was incredible and just as dominant.
Well, I still look at LeBron, a better rebounder, better passer. Mike was not shooting a three back then. He would have developed into
he still could shoot it, though.
Yeah, but LeBron has turned into at least a dangerous three-point shooter. Like you have to account for him when he takes those shots. But the personality, though, is, I think, the biggest difference. Because Mike wanted to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Was he mean to you?
No, he wasn't. He actually killed me slowly. And, yeah, he would comment to the coach, he's actually doing a great job out here. And meanwhile, he's pouring in 45.
Wait, he's talking to your coaches?
Yeah, I remember Chris Ford, he's yelling at me. Chris Ford's yelling the whole time. He's like, rookie, get in front of him. And I'm fronting him on the post, and MJ just kind of slowly glides across the floor, and he gets the ball and shakes and scores. And I did everything the game plan said, and then there's a break in action. We're sitting there, and, Chris Ford is just down there just hammering me, and MJ was like, he's doing a great job, coach. He's actually doing a great job. Meanwhile, he's got 45 on the books. So I was like, yeah.
Did you think that Mike didn't want you taken out because he had 45 in the books? Like he wanted you to guard him?
No, I honestly believe that he didn't think that anybody could stop him. He can score whenever he wanted to score, wherever he wanted to score. So it didn't matter what I did out on the floor. He was going to get his touches. He was going to get his points.
More unstoppable, though, when they get that mindset, Michael or Kobe?
Certainly Michael.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, Kobe put up 81.
Yeah, that was a bad Toronto defense at the time. I remember.
It's still 81, right?
Yeah. It's a marvelous
He had 60
feat.
in his last game he played.
Yeah, it was a marvelous feat. It's hard to really compare the generations. If you look at what MJ did during his era, like I played in between both those eras, and the rules were totally different. Like you can't touch a guy now. A guy will go to the free throw line 20, 25 times a game just off of ticky-tack stuff.
But he used to, and Phil Jackson said this when he was promoting his book years ago. If Mike played today, he would average 45 in his prime.
Easy.
You believe that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why it's, so much is made about the errors. It's just not a comparison. To compare what we do now, what's going on now, to what's happened in the 80s and the 90s.
Well, they would beat up James Harden now.
Oh, yeah.
Like he'd go to the floor a few times.
Yeah, if he flopped once or twice, they would make sure they gave him a reason to flop or fall down. It wouldn't be them guessing, did somebody hit him? Right now, when we see a foul, we're always guessing, well, did he get touched? What happened? His hand went this way, so it's always like we're trying to decipher what happened in the play. But back in the 80s and early 90s, it was like he just kind of took his elbow and went right across his head. And it was a real foul.
Yeah, they didn't call flagrants back then.
Yeah, no.
They would just say, that's a foul. That's a hard foul is what you get.
Foul. And
playoff fouls.
Yeah, I remember going to the hole as a young fella, and you got knocked down, literally. You got knocked down, and you went to go make a layup, and you hit the ground. If the ball went in the air, then they'll knock you down, and it's not a foul because the ball's gone already. Nowadays, it's excessive. They might throw you out of the game.
Do you ever want to fight somebody?
Oh yeah.
Who?
I don't think there's anybody in particular. I think at times where your emotions kind of get the best of you, but you're supposed to be trained not to want to fight anybody. You're supposed to be, it's like, how do you go through practice, go through shoot arounds and just all this preparation? Like, we're supposed to be trained at these moments in these situations.
But did you get a cheap shot that you just said, like, I want to punch somebody?
Well, I got into a fight, one that I remember against Keon Doolin. He played with the Magic, and I was in Seattle. And it was a lot of cheap shot throwing in that game, and we went at it. You know, we threw punches, and I got suspended, I think, 3 games for it. Would
you have done it differently? Or did you feel like, sometimes you have to stand up for yourself?
Yeah, I would have done it any differently. I believe when things happen around the league, around sports, any sport, if you see somebody get punked or something happens and, somebody just tries you, you don't stand up for yourself, you're going to have...
They're going to do it again.
You're going to have a tough time for the rest of that year.
All right, we're going to come back. Ray, is during the commercial break, if we blindfold you from the free throw line, do you think that you could shoot better than we can?
On this hoop?
Yeah.
Not on this hoop, no.
Oh, okay.
But, the ceiling is gonna.
That's my home court advantage, right?
Yeah, on a normal hoop, I definitely could beat you.
You could beat me blindfolded.
Yeah, because I know I got to rely on getting the ball in the air more, blindfolded, because I got to hope that it sits up there softly. But here I don't have that ability of that.
If you shot 100 free throws blindfolded on your hoop at home, how many you make?
Probably 55 or 60.
Oh, you're going to need to do better than that to beat me.
Yeah, well, if I was a hoop at home is one thing, in a gym is different. You're out in the open air.
I'm ready.
I don't know parameters, but
I'm ready. My eyes will be open, Ray.
I'm like a dolphin. Like, I just hit I throw my sonars out into the area, and I know I can hone in on the hoop. I know where it is.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we'll blindfold you and see how many you can make, though. I got to even it out somehow, so I was going to say left-handed. You wouldn't beat me left-handed with eyes open. No, you wouldn't.
Out of 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
Oh, it's possible, but it's not going to happen.
Well,
I'll bet my life on it.
No, don't do that.
No, I will. I'll end my life if you beat me.
No, I don't even want to take that bet.
All
like,
right.
if you even bet $100,000, I don't even want that, because I don't want to take your money. I just want you. The studio's nice. I don't want to have any stock in it. I just want to come here and visit.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. We'll play nice here. But we'll shoot free throws here with Ray coming up. We'll take a break. We're back after this on the Dan Patrick Show.
Ray, if you had rebounders like us, we would
He didn't need rebounders.
Yeah.
The
one thing we always say about shooting, like when you shoot the ball, you notice if you're on based on your misses sometimes. So you see some guy shooting, the ball hits, and it just kind of ends up way in crazy places. Well, you can tell the good ones when the ball hits and it bounces somewhere in the vicinity. And that's what good rebounders know.
You guys,
it's not going too far.
You guys
now, am I allowed to do this at the line?
right now, yeah.
Can I do that? Two great shooters putting on a shooting display during the live look-in, if you were watching, as Ray Allen is still with us, 2-time NBA champ, 10-time All-Star, now Hall of Famer. You won a title with the Celtics and the Heat. Which title meant more to you?
Probably the Celtics championship, because I hadn't won anything up to that point. And when you come from, Seattle, where we had struggled, we had one playoff berth, and to go from, the Celtics were worst to first, it was almost like unimaginable. So that probably, when it's the first time when you get there, it's like an amazing feeling.
You, during your speech, gave a shout out to the Celtics players winning a championship there. Mm-hmm. Still, we've talked about this. It's just such a weird relationship, or lack thereof, that continues. Why is it it feels like there's something that's always going to be there, unless it's the media that keeps it there? Because it feels like you've tried to move on with it or tried to mend fences here.
Yeah, I've even when I left, it was you just know that this is what you have to do for your career, and there's no like harm. You're not creating any ill will as I leave. It's just all about trying to figure out how to improve your career. I focus more on what we did in the 5 years we spent together.
Could you have left the Celtics differently, and therefore we wouldn't have?
Well, that to me is really on the eye of the beholder. I think the people who feel some kind of way about me having left, obviously, I was very loved in the city, and I still feel the same way about the city because of what we've done and what we did. So I've heard from people that said, we just hate that you went to Miami. The fact that we hate LeBron, you went to LeBron. You could have went to Phoenix and it would have been all good. So it's a bunch of ideas where they were upset because of where I ultimately ended up going, and then the fact that I won was even more of a wedge that drove in people's minds. So there's nothing I can do about it, because every sports personality, every player, your job is to go and figure out how to win. And, every person in any walk of life at any job, like you go to figure out where you can best put yourself in a situation you could be successful, make the most money, and hopefully win if it's a sport environment.
But you've also talked about this, that you had family telling you it feels like you're being shunned, that you're not getting the ball.
Yeah.
You'd be coming off a pick and Rondo's not going to throw you the ball.
Right.
They're telling you this. And then did you come to the realization of, I'm being frozen out here?
Yeah, and I went and talked to Doc about it, and he acknowledged it. And I was surprised by that because I was like, well, you acknowledge it and you haven't done anything about it. So whatever happened, the breakdown in the relationship, it's unfortunate. And that's why you say, well, look, with all these things, you throw it in a pot and you stir it around. It just means that ultimately it's time for me to move on, as much as it bothered me, because it was, playing in Boston was probably the most incredible experience.
That was a great team.
Those fans, they're like no other. So it's unfortunate, but it's almost like you get your walking papers and it's time to go. So there's nothing more, than your happiness that's more important when you're in a situation, when you're working a job. And so it was ultimately time that the writing was on the wall.
Do you think that KD has gotten fair criticism for leaving Oklahoma City to go? It's basically what you did. Yeah, and I hear the comparisons being made a lot.
Yeah. I will say that when I was a free agent, I knew that the time for me was over, and I had to decide that I was not, the option of me signing back with Boston was no longer on the table. And so ultimately I had to decide where it was that I was going to go. I had 3 teams left on the table, and that was Miami, Memphis, and Minnesota. So you tell me, you tell me, where you ultimately would have ended up.
Well, they
living.
all begin with M, but there's one that stands out.
There's one that stands out more.
There's weather, and then there's LeBron and D Wade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. When you got to put yourself in a situation to win. I think in KD's situation, he had so many different situations, that were. I actually thought he would go to Boston, because I thought that was a viable option for him, because they were young and, they were on the verge of doing great things.
And people would have been okay with that.
Yeah. And, it was like he didn't have to go to Golden State for them to win a championship. So it was, whether you could say he and I were in the same predicament or not, I didn't have that many other options.
But do you think you could see a scenario where KD, and it feels like he's sensitive that he responds to all this Twitter nonsense here, that he's ruined the NBA. He's heard that criticism, that maybe he says, all right, I'll win another title in Golden State, and then I'm going to leave Golden State after this year. And could you see him joining LeBron in Los Angeles?
I mean, it's hard to say what is possible. I don't think that he should make a decision based on what people say about him. Because he made this decision in the first place because he wanted to do what was best for him and he wanted to win. So now he's in it. you got to stick with it. You got to ride it out.
I don't know why he doesn't just embrace being a villain. Like, okay,
Yeah, that's
so
just
what?
what
You're not going to like me.
Yeah, and that's it.
Scoreboard. That's what I just say. Just scoreboard.
No matter what, people are going to disagree with whatever you do. What you got to know is this is your life. It's what you get to do on a daily basis, and you're the one. If we're writing this movie, you're the star of it. So do it.
But also, I don't think he would want to help LeBron's legacy, because the more titles LeBron wins, the further away he gets from Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's going to end up with probably more titles than LeBron James. Not that he's a better player than LeBron, but he's probably thinking of, if I go to L.A., I could help LeBron win 1 or 2 more titles.
But I don't think when you're in it and you have the opportunity, I don't think guys think about legacy at that time, because from one year to the next, you're not guaranteed to win a championship. Even if you're stacked on a pretty good team, there's no guarantee, because you're always so worried about injuries going into every year. You just never know. Like, you like your odds, but you just never know. So
would you have stayed in Cleveland, or would you have gone to Los Angeles, given the rosters, if you're LeBron?
If I'm LeBron, I would think that what we put together in Cleveland, we could put together anywhere. Because the way they made the trade in mid-season, they traded, I think, 8 guys away. Yeah. And so when you think of a team like that, LeBron is certainly thinking we can make this work in a bigger market. And, it almost gives him leverage into his after basketball career at the same time. So, I think that it was a good move for him.
Would you rather work with Lonzo Ball or Ben Simmons?
Ben Simmons.
Because?
Ben Simmons has great height. He's not a great shooter yet.
But if you're going to help their shooting, you're a shooting coach, would you rather have Ben or Lonzo?
Yeah, I'm taking Ben. Lonzo's form looks like it's kind of baked in, and I don't know how much he can improve on that. I think he can improve on it. I don't know. It's like you hate to take a professional athlete and change their shot completely. So
could you change Lonzo's shot?
That's hard to say.
Because I'm wondering, and I pointed this out on the air before, that KD starts on the left side and then moves over. If I could get Lonzo to start a little higher to go over, I wonder if that would help him.
Again, it's got to be up to that guy that's willing to do that. But a lot of it is all about your body position and getting to your shot anyway. Because, look at Kevin Martin. Kevin Martin, for his 12, 14 years in the NBA, he had one of the best three-point balls out there, and he was way over here. Like, half the time we didn't know if he was going to shoot the ball. It was like, I don't know when he's loading up, so you have to pretend, you have to think that he's about to load up, even when he just kind of has the ball and he kind of pushes it from here. But it's just efficiency and everything else. Like, if you have a slower trigger, then you have to have your body and your feet ready earlier. So, I don't know if I would change Lonzo Ball's shot if he's comfortable with it. What I would do is try and work with him on everything else to get him in that position.
We can't shoot free throws, Ray.
Yeah, and that's
50% from the line.
And that's all about, sitting down with this kid and trying to figure out, is he committed to the work, like committed to putting in the preparation every single day, so he understands what he's dealing with. Because to me, free throws, I used to be that guy at home, and I know there's a lot of people like this, that I would watch guys. I'd be in high school, college, and I was like, look at these guys. They're making all this money, and they can't make a free throw. And then when I got to the NBA, I realized, free throws are so much more, there's more into it.
A lot of mental in there.
Yeah, and it's like when you go on the free throw line and you're down 2 and you got to tie the game, you got to make 2 free throws. Like, whether you're home on the road, each situation presents its own circumstances. So it goes back to routine. Like, if you don't have a routine, if you don't have a consistency, if you don't practice that, when you're at home or when you're in practice, there's so much that will cause you to miss that shot, and it can snowball in the wrong direction. And the problem is in 82 games, if you're on a bad streak, it can continue for a long time.
You ever shoot an air ball from the line?
I don't think so.
No, I didn't think so. What'd you end up, over 90% from the line?
Probably 89, 90, somewhere around there.
So one of the top 10 free throw shooters of all time.
Yeah.
And that's just work.
That's it. It's not talented. Work. Yeah. I credit, a lot of people don't know this, but I credit a player in Milwaukee by the name of Jeff Nordgaard. Early in my career, I played with him, and Jeff and I used to always have a free throw game, and he was an incredible free throw shooter. And early on, he gave me somebody to challenge, somebody to compete against. And it was always swishes. And so I constantly was out there doing that with him. And so for the rest of my career, that's what I did.
You went from 82% when you were a rookie, and then you went to 92%.
Yeah, because
2 years later.
And that was the difference. I didn't know what challenging myself on the free throw line was all about. I didn't understand, like, it's a real thing to shoot free throws after every routine and to really shoot. It's one thing, like, you go into a practice and you're down there by yourself and you just shoot 10 free throws and you walk off the floor.
That's not real.
Yeah, it isn't, because can you draw back on these circumstances when you're in a game? Because in the game, it's so much more intense.
Could you have helped Shaq?
I'd like to think I could, but again, I think the guys that really get better are the ones that really want help. We always say, if you come to the situation with your cup already full, I can't put anything in it. You can't just think you know everything, because you're talking about, like, extremely incredible athletes and some of the best of all time. And if you come with that mentality that I don't need help or I'm good, I can't help you. Case in point, LeBron, every time I went to the free throw line or I was shooting shots, LeBron was like, let me get some shots up with you. And then he would ask questions, when you're shooting free throws, why do you do it like this? And, what do you see in my free throws? And he always asked for help. And for a minute there, he was getting better at his free throws. And I don't know what his percentage were this past year, but you got to be willing to ask for assistance, no matter how good or bad you are.
Well, even the greats add something, because Magic added the outside shot. Mike started going down on the blocks. And that's you get to a certain level, and then do you add to your game when you get to a certain level? It's like Vince became a three-point shooter. Jason Kidd became a three-point. If that willingness to add to your game or evolve separates the goods from the greats to the Hall of Famers there.
Well, Vince was always a three-point shooter. He could shoot, young, but he was just so athletic. It overshadowed his three-point shooting.
Yeah.
And even when he was dunking on people, a lot of times people would always say he settled when he shot the threes, because they're like, they just want to see him get the ball and go down there and dunk on somebody. So yeah, I think it's the evolution of the player and how the game goes, because we always say once the league figures you out, you have to have a go-to move, a secondary move, and then you might have to have a third move. But if you stick to the same move, if you're playing in a playoff scenario, then you're going to have a bad playoffs, because we know percentage-wise that you go to the right 90% of the time.
Okay, but Harden goes left all the time. Manu Ginobili went left all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He still couldn't stop him.
Well, the thing about Manu was they used to clear that side for him too, and he'd start from all the way, almost at half court, and it's hard to make a guy go right from there because you're basically giving him a straight line anyway. James Harden, when he goes left, if you take his left, he steps back and then he shoots a three. And he's good at doing that. So that's his secondary move off of taking that away from him.
So when he takes 3 steps back to shoot the three.
Yeah, 3 steps, yeah. Or he'll just he'll Euro step from the left to the right side, but he'll always finish on his left. So it's difficult to stop the great players, but what you have to do is make them uncomfortable.
Any update on He Got Game 2?
None, not yet.
Come on. We got the script here, I think.
Where? No, we don't got the script.
Well, I don't
yet.
have the script. I have it in my head, though.
Yeah, we have it in our head too, but we got to get this thing down on wax. You can't it's got to go from our minds out into the paper.
I think Spike Lee's got to throw the kitchen sink at you.
Well, Spike just finished Black Klansman, which I haven't watched it, but I heard it's
great
incredible.
reviews. Great reviews.
And so he's been pretty busy, and that's what I try to stay in the forefront of his mind. So every now and then we got to sit down and start writing this thing down. I've had a lot of people reach out to me and say, I offer to write the script. I want to write the script. I want to get this thing going.
Do you have Denzel's cell number?
I don't, but we're always like 1 or 2 people removed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, he's busy too. He's putting out 2 or 3 movies a year, it seems like.
I know.
So,
your nickname, I didn't know that this was your nickname, and you said this at your Hall of Fame speech. Do you want to let the audience know what your nickname was later in your career?
Well, I mean, my nickname was, I had a couple different nicknames, but the one that ultimately ended up defining me a lot was O. And, you know, some people used to say, like, how you grew up, and like, some kids used to say, I thought my name was Damn It, because my dad, every time you come downstairs, like, damn it, didn't I tell you? You're like, I thought my name was Damn It growing up. And so every time I turned around, I'm on the floor, I would hear, oh, you know, because I was in a position where I wasn't supposed to be in the minds of the opposing coach, because that guy guarding me's only job was to stay on me. And it was frustrating because you're watching defensive scheme where I see my point guard just dribble right down the lane. I'm telling the guy, like, yo, you should help. You know you should help, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm part of, like, I'm just standing over in the corner. And then the guy's thinking, like, no, I'm not supposed to leave you at all. And then the ball goes up. He's standing on me, thinks he guards me, and he turns around and he looks. And then when he looks back, I'm gone. And then the ball ends up in my hand, and then he's like, oh, coach is saying, oh, everybody. And then they take him out of the game because you're not supposed to leave him. It's just human nature, because when do we ever play a game of basketball where you look at one guy and you're not supposed to leave him? Like, you help defense, go get the rebound, whatever. But you basically have to face guard me so you know where I am at all times. And I tell you, one guy that used to do that, and it used to drive me wild, with Bruce Bowen. Like, he knew, I'm not leaving you. I'm not even going to go to the basket. Tim's down there. I'm not going to turn my head. And if you try to go to the basket, I'm going to elbow you and knock you to the ground, which happened a couple of times.
It's a great nickname, and it's great to have you in studio. We appreciate it, Ray, and congratulations again on the Hall of Fame. Well deserved.
Thank you, Dan.
And if you want me to put on a clinic during the commercial break, I'll do that as well. Maybe.